The last stand, the ground shook again, and dust rained down from the concrete ceiling of the underground bunker. Dr. Mira. Thorne pressed her back against the cold metal wall and closed her eyes, trying to block out the sound of explosions above. 3 days ago, she had been studying the fascinating plant life of Kalara in her research station. Now she was trapped underground with 200 other souls waiting for death to find them. Dr. Thorne called Captain Zek Morden, his voice cutting through the noise. The tall, blue-skinned Kelleran officer approached her position near the emergency medical station. His usually pristine uniform was torn and dirty, and a bandage covered the left side of his face where shrapnel had cut him during the initial attack. Mira opened her eyes and looked at him. As the only human on Kellara, she had always felt like an outsider, but now she was just another refugee trying to survive. How bad is it, Captain? Zek's forearms moved in a gesture of frustration that she had learned to recognize during her 2 years on the planet. The surface positions have fallen. The Vorthik have brought in heavy artillery. Our defensive shields won't hold much longer. Through the bunker's thick walls, they could hear the steady thump of enemy weapons. The Vorthik Empire had come to Kalara 3 days ago with a simple message: surrender or die. The peaceful Kelleran people had tried to negotiate, but the Vorthak were not interested in talking. They wanted the planet's rare mineral deposits, and they would take them by force. How many of them are up there? Meyer asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Our last count was 50,000 soldiers, plus their war machines. Zek's voice was steady, but she could see the despair in his large, dark eyes. We have maybe 200 fighters left, and most of them are injured. Myra nodded and tried to keep her own fear from showing. She had sent out a distress signal on the first day of the attack, broadcasting on every frequency she could access. The message had been simple. This is Dr. Mira Thorne on Kalara. We are under attack by the Vorthik Empire. 50,000 enemy. Soldiers, we need immediate assistance. Please help us. But Kalara was far from the main trade routes, and the nearest human colony was weeks away, even at maximum speed. No was coming. They were on their own. The bunker shook again, this time more violently. Emergency lights flickered, and somewhere in the distance, a child began to cry. Myra looked around at the other survivors. Kelleran families huddled. Together, their blue skin pale with fear. Some of the older civilians were praying in their native language, their voices rising and falling in ancient rhythms. Doctor, said a young Kelleran woman named Lyra, approaching with her infant son in her arms. The communications array is still working? Should we try to send another message? Myra wanted to say yes to keep trying, but she knew it was useless. Even if someone received their signal, there wasn't enough time. The Vorthik would break through their defenses within hours, and then it would all be over. Yes, she said anyway. We keep trying until the end. Captain Zek moved to the center of the bunker, where a small group of his remaining soldiers had gathered around a tactical display. The holographic map showed the positions of Vorthak forces above ground, red dots covering almost every surface structure on the planet. Sir, said one of his officers, a young lieutenant with 3 arms instead of the usual 4. He had lost the 4th and the first day of fighting. The outer perimeter is gone. They're setting up siege engines around the bunker entrances. Zek studied the display, his mind working through possibilities that didn't exist. The Vorthik were methodical in their conquest. They would surround the bunkers, then use drilling equipment to break through the walls. Once inside, they would kill everyone they found. How long do we have? He asked. Maybe 6 hours, sir. 8 if we're lucky. Zek nodded and dismissed his officers. 6 hours to live. He thought about his family in the capital city, wondering if they were still alive. The Vorthik had hit every major population center simultaneously. But some people might have escaped into the wilderness. Dr. Mira Thorne was back at the communication station, her fingers dancing over the control panel. She was human, which meant she understood technology differently than the Kellerans did. Her equipment was more advanced, her methods more creative. If anyone could get a message through the Vorthak jamming, it would be her. "This is Dr. Mira Thorne on Kellara," she said into the microphone, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. "Day 3 of the Vorthak attack. We are trapped in underground bunkers. 50,000 enemy soldiers control the surface. We have maybe 200 civilians and soldiers left. If anyone can hear this, please send help. We won't last much longer." She sent the message out on every frequency she could access, hoping that somewhere in the vast darkness of space, someone would hear their plea. The signal traveled at light speed through the void, carrying their desperate hope to distant stars. 2. Hours later, the outer defenses finally failed. The sound of drilling equipment echoed through the bunker walls, and everyone knew what it meant. The Vorthak were coming. Captain Zek gathered his remaining soldiers. 19 fighters, most of them wounded, all of them tired. They had fought bravely for 3 days, but now they were facing the end. "We make our stand at the main entrance," he told them. "We hold them as long as we can, and we make sure the civilians have time to reach the deeper tunnels." The soldiers nodded, checking their weapons one last time. They knew they couldn't win, but they would die fighting. It was the Kelleran way. Dr. Mira Thorne helped organize the evacuation of the deepest parts of the bunker. Families with children went first, followed by the elderly and injured. She stayed with the communications equipment, still sending distress signals even as the sound of drilling grew louder. "Doctor," said Lyra, still carrying her baby, "you should come with us. There's nothing more you can do here." Mira looked at the communications console, then at the tactical display showing Vorthak forces moving closer. "I'll stay a few more minutes," someone might answer. But even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. No one was coming. They were alone in the darkness, waiting for death. The drilling sound suddenly stopped. In the silence that followed, everyone in the bunker held their breath. Then came the sound of heavy footsteps, and the distinctive hiss of Vorthak breathing apparatus. "They're in," whispered one of the soldiers. Captain Zek raised his weapon. "Remember," he said to his fighters, "we hold them here, no matter what." The first Vorthak soldier appeared at the entrance to the main tunnel. It was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, covered in dark armor that made it look like a mechanical monster. Its face was hidden behind a helmet with glowing red eyes, and it carried a weapon that could punch through steel. Zek fired first, his shot striking the creature in the chest. The armor absorbed most of the impact, but the Vorthak staggered back. Then more of them appeared, their weapons charging with ominous humming sounds. The battle was brief and brutal. The Kelleran soldiers fought with desperate courage, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. One by one, they fell, their bodies sprawled across the tunnel floor. Dr. Mira Thorne watched from the communications station as Captain Zek made his final stand. The brave Kelleran officer stood alone against 6 Vorthak soldiers, his weapon firing again and again until it ran out of power. Then he drew his ceremonial blade and charged forward, his 4 arms moving in a blur of motion. He managed to wound one of the creatures before a Vorthak energy weapon cut him down. As he fell, his eyes met Myra's across the bunker, and she saw him mouth the words, "Protect them," before the light faded from his eyes. Asterisk. The Vorthak soldiers stepped over his body and advanced into the bunker. Their red eyes swept the area, looking for more resistance. They found none. The remaining civilians were huddled in the deepest tunnels, waiting for the end. Myra turned back to her equipment and sent one final message. "This is Dr. Mira Thorne on Kellara. The bunker has fallen. The Vorthak are inside. To anyone who receives this message, remember us. Remember that we tried to survive. Remember that we never gave up hope." She was about to shut down the communications array when something impossible happened. A new signal appeared on her screen, strong and clear, cutting through the Vorthak jamming like a knife through paper. "Dr. Thorne, this is Sergeant Marcus Cheen of the 47th Colonial Marine Expeditionary Force. We received your distress signal." "We are coming. Hold on." Mira stared at the screen, unable to believe what she was seeing. "This is Dr. Thorne. Did you say you're coming? How is that possible? We've been tracking Vorthic fleet movements in this sector. When we intercepted your signal, we diverted our entire force to your location. We're dropping in 30 seconds. 30 seconds? Myra felt her heart pounding. After 3 days of despair, after watching everyone she cared about die, help was finally coming. But would it be too late? She grabbed the bunker's emergency communication system and activated it. "Everyone listen to me," she said, her voice echoing through the tunnels. "Help is coming. Human soldiers are about to arrive. We need to hold on just a little longer." The Vorthic soldiers were searching the tunnels now, their heavy footsteps getting closer. Mira could hear families crying in the darkness, children asking their parents what was happening. Then, from somewhere far above, came a sound like thunder. But it wasn't thunder. It was the sound of metal hitting the ground at incredible speed, over and over again. The sound of salvation falling from the sky. Asterisk fire from above, the first drop pod hit the surface of Kalara like a meteor. Its impact. Crater glowing with heat. The titanium shell cracked open, and Sergeant Marcus Chen emerged, his combat armor already adapting to the local environment. His helmet display showed him everything he needed to know. 50,000 Vorthak soldiers, civilian bunkers under. Attack, and approximately 6 minutes before the defenders would be completely overrun. "Ura," he shouted into his communicator as more pods slammed into the ground around him. "Phoenix Company, sound off." "Corporal Elena Vasquez, tech specialist." "Ready for action," came the first reply. "Private Jake Morrison, heavy weapons locked and loaded." "Lieutenant Sarah Kim, medical officer, ready to save lives." One by one, his Marines checked in. 47 soldiers of the Colonial Marine Expeditionary Force, the best fighters humanity had ever produced. They had trained for this moment their entire careers, outnumbered, outgunned, but never outfought. Chun's helmet display highlighted the nearest bunker entrance, where Vorthak soldiers were pouring through the breached defenses. "Phoenix Company, this is Sergeant Chun. We have civilians under immediate threat." "Vasquez, Morrison, you're with me on bunker assault. Kim, set up a field hospital near the landing zone. Everyone else, establish a perimeter and start thinning out the enemy." The Marines moved with practiced efficiency, their adaptive armor shifting color and texture to match the terrain. The Vorthak had never faced humans in combat before, and they were about to learn why that was a mistake. Chun sprinted toward the bunker entrance, his assault rifle already charging. Behind him, Corporal Vasquez carried an array of electronic warfare equipment that could hack into almost any system. Private Morrison followed with a heavy plasma cannon that could punch through tank armor. The first Vorthik soldier Chen encountered was 8 feet tall and covered in dark armor. It raised its weapon, but Chun was faster. His rifle fired a burst of smart rounds that curved around the creature's shield and struck it in the joints. Where the armor was weakest, the alien dropped like a stone. "Vasquez, can you get into there?" "Communication system?" Chun asked as they advanced through the tunnel. "Already on it, Sergeant." Vasquez's fingers flew over her portable terminal. These guys use a basic encryption system. It's like they've never dealt with electronic warfare before. Within seconds, she had cracked their network. The Vorthik soldiers began receiving false orders telling them to retreat to positions that didn't exist. Their coordination collapsed as their commanders tried to figure out what was happening. Chun reached the main bunker chamber just as the last of the Kelleran defenders fell. He saw Dr. Mira Thorne at the communications station, her face pale but determined. Around her, Vorthik soldiers were advancing on the terrified civilians. "Morrison, light them up," Chen ordered. Private Morrison stepped into the chamber and fired. His plasma cannon, the superheated energy beam cut through Vorthak armor like paper, and the aliens scrambled for cover. But there was nowhere to hide in the enclosed space. Dr. Thorne. Chun called out. "Marcus Chun, Colonial Marines, are you injured?" Myra looked at the human soldier in amazement. He was shorter than the Vorthok, but moved with incredible speed and precision. His armor was sleek and sophisticated, covered with sensors and weapons that she had never seen before. "I'm fine," she replied. "But there are civilians in the deeper tunnels." The Vorthok were about to ... "Not anymore," Chun said grimly. He spoke into his communicator. "Phoenix Company, this is Chun. Bunker secured. Beginning civilian evacuation. Vasquez, I need you to interface with the local systems and give me a full tactical picture." Corporal Vasquez plugged her equipment into the bunker's network. Within moments, she had access to every sensor on the planet. "Sergeant, I'm reading massive Vorthak formations converging on our position. They're bringing everything they have." "Many. Approximately 48,000 soldiers, plus armor and air support. They're really not happy about our arrival." Chan smiled grimly. "Good. Let's give them something to be upset about." Outside, the battle was expanding rapidly. The Marines had taken control of the high ground around the bunker, using their superior mobility and technology to outmaneuver the Vorthok forces. Lieutenant Kim had set up her field hospital in a protected valley, where she was treating wounded. Kelleran soldiers alongside her own Marines. The Vorthok had never faced an enemy like this. Their military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and rigid tactics. They would surround an enemy position, then assault it with massive numbers until it fell. But the humans refused to stay in one place long enough to be surrounded. "This is War Commander Drexus," growled the Vorthak leader into his communicator. "What is the status of the bunker assault?" "Sir, we've encountered unknown hostile forces. They appear to be human, but their technology is far more advanced than we expected. They've disrupted our communications and are using tactics we've never seen before." Drexus felt a chill run through his armored body. The Vorthak Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never encountered humans in combat. Intelligence reports suggested that humans were a peaceful species, more interested in science and trade than warfare. "How many of them are there?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. They're moving too fast for accurate counts, but they're causing significant casualties." Drexus studied the tactical display in his command center. The humans had landed near the bunker complex, but they weren't staying there. Small groups were moving all across the battlefield, striking at Vorthak positions and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. "Bring up the heavy armor," he ordered. "Deploy the siege engines. We'll crush them with overwhelming force." But as the Vorthok heavy weapons moved into position, they found themselves under attack from unexpected directions. Corporal Vasquez had hacked into their targeting systems, causing their weapons to misfire. Private Morrison and his heavy weapons team were taking out armor with precision strikes, and Sergeant Chen was coordinating a network of Kelleran civilians who had emerged from hiding to help with the fight Dr. Mira. Dorn found herself in the middle of a revolution. The Kelleran people had watched their world burn for 3 days, convinced that they were going to die. Now, suddenly, they had hope again, and with hope came anger. Asterisk. "Dr. Thorne," said a voice behind her. She turned to see a young Kelleran named Corin, one of the few who had survived the initial attack on the capital city. "My family is dead. My home is destroyed, but I want to fight." Myra looked at him, then at the dozen other Kellerans who had gathered around him. They were farmers, teachers, merchants. They had never been soldiers, but they were ready to fight for their world. "Sergeant Chen," she called out, "we have volunteers." Chun appeared at her side, his armor scorched from battle, but his eyes still bright with determination. "How many?" 12 to start with. "More coming?" Chun nodded. "Can they follow orders?" "They can learn. Good enough." Vasquez set up a weapons cache. "I want every civilian armed with at least a sidearm. Morrison, start training them on basic combat tactics. We're going to turn this into a guerrilla war." The Vorthak had controlled the surface of Kalara for 3 days, but they had never bothered to map the underground tunnel system. It was a network of natural caves and mining shafts that connected every major population center on the planet. The Kellerans had used it for transportation and communication for centuries. Now, it became the backbone of the resistance. Chun split his Marines into small teams, each one leading a group of Kelleran fighters through the tunnels. They would emerge near a Vorthak position, strike hard and fast, then disappear underground before the enemy could respond. "This is insane," muttered War Commander Drexus as he watched another of his positions come under attack. "How are they moving so fast? How do they know where we are?" His science officer, a thin creature with pale skin and large eyes, looked up from his instruments. "Sir, I believe they're using the natural cave system. Our sensors can't penetrate the rock, so we have no way of tracking their movements. Then seal the caves. Use explosives to collapse the tunnels." "Sir, that would require thousands of charges. Placed simultaneously. We don't have enough explosives, and even if we did, we'd need to locate every tunnel entrance on the planet." Drexus felt his confidence beginning to crack. In 3 days of easy conquest, he had gone from complete victory to a desperate struggle against an enemy he couldn't predict or control. Meanwhile, in the tunnels beneath Kalara, the humans and Kellerans were working together with increasing efficiency. Dr. Mira Thorne had become an unofficial coordinator, using her scientific knowledge to help plan attacks on key Vorthic infrastructure. "If we can take out their communication relays," she explained to Chun, "they won't be able to coordinate their forces effectively." "Good thinking." "Vasquez, can you identify their relay stations?" Corporal Vasquez nodded, her fingers flying over her equipment. "I've been monitoring their network traffic. I can give you precise locations for every relay on the planet." "Perfect. Morrison, I want you to take a team and start hitting those relays. Make it look like random attacks, but follow the sequence that Vasquez gives you." Private Morrison grinned. "Understood, Sergeant. Time to give these aliens a taste of human engineering." The attacks began at sunset. Small teams of Marines and Kelleran fighters emerged from tunnels across the planet, striking at communication relays, supply depots, and vehicle maintenance facilities. Each attack was precisely coordinated, hitting multiple targets simultaneously. To prevent the Vorthak from adapting their defenses, within hours the Vorthik army had lost contact with half of its units. Commanders were issuing orders that never reached their troops. Supply convoys were getting lost because their navigation systems couldn't communicate with base. The rigid military structure that had conquered hundreds of worlds was collapsing under the weight of its own inflexibility. "Sir," reported the Vorthak science officer, "we're losing control of the situation. The humans are using asymmetric warfare tactics that our doctrine doesn't account for." War Commander Drexus stared at the tactical display, watching as red dots, representing his forces, began to flicker and disappear. "How many humans are there?" "Our best estimate is fewer than 50 soldiers, sir." 50? 50 humans are defeating 50,000 Vorthak warriors? "Sir, it's not just the humans. They're organizing the local population. Our intelligence suggests that thousands of Kellerans are now actively fighting against us." Drexus felt a chill. That had nothing to do with the climate. The Vorthik Empire had always relied on fear to maintain control. They would attack a world with overwhelming force, crush any resistance, and then rule through intimidation. But fear was a double-edged weapon. When people stopped being afraid, they became dangerous. "Prepare the ships for orbital bombardment," he ordered. "If we can't control the planet, we'll destroy it." But even as he gave the order, Drexus knew it was too late. The humans had changed everything. They had shown the Kellerans that the Vorthak could be defeated, that resistance was possible. Even if he destroyed this world, the story would spread. Other species would learn that the mighty Vorthak Empire could be beaten by a handful of determined fighters. On the surface of Kalara, Sergeant Cheen was coordinating the final phase of the liberation. His Marines had spent 18 hours turning a hopeless situation into a complete victory. The Vorthik were retreating to their landing zones, preparing to evacuate the planet. "Vasquez, how are their ships looking?" he asked, heavily damaged. Sergeant, they're trying to repair their engines, but Morrison's team hit their maintenance facilities pretty hard. I say they need at least 6 hours to get spaceworthy. 6 hours. Chun smiled. More than enough time to finish this. Dr. Mira Thorne approached him, her face dirty but her eyes bright with hope. Sergeant, the Kelleran government is organizing. They want to formally thank you and your Marines. Tell them to thank us by rebuilding their world, Chun replied. We're not done here yet. The Vorsic will come back, probably with more ships. We need to make sure Kellara is ready for them. You mean you're staying? For now? My orders are to establish a human military presence in the sector. Looks like Kellara just became our first base of operations. Mira felt tears in her eyes. 3 days ago, she had thought she was going to die. Now, she was watching the birth of a new alliance between humanity and the Kelleran people. There's something else, she said. During the battle, I've been monitoring communications from other worlds. The Vorthik aren't just attacking Kellara. They're hitting targets across this entire sector. Chun nodded grimly. That's what we figured. This isn't about one planet. It's about stopping an empire that thinks it can conquer anyone it wants. As the sun rose over Kellara, the last Vorthak ships limped into orbit and jumped to hyperspace. The planet was free, but the war was just beginning. In the tunnels and caves beneath the surface, humans and Kellerans were working together, planning. For the battles to come, the Vorthak Empire had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years through fear and overwhelming force. But they had never faced an enemy like humanity. And now, with their new allies, the humans were ready to show the galaxy that no empire lasts forever. In the command bunker that had once been a place of desperation. Dr. Mira Thorne sat with Sergeant Chun, planning the future. On the walls around them, maps showed the locations of other worlds under Vorthak attack. Each one represented millions of people who needed help. We'll need more ships, Chun said, studying the strategic situation. More Marines, more equipment. You'll have them, Mira replied. The Kelleran people will provide whatever support they can. And there are other species in this sector who are tired of Vorthak rule. With the right approach, we can build a real alliance. Chun smiled. Sounds like you're thinking about more than just defending one planet. I am. 3 days ago, I was a researcher studying alien plants. Now I'm thinking about liberating an entire galaxy. Good, Chun said. Because that's exactly what we're going to do. Outside, the morning sky was clear and blue. The sound of construction equipment echoed across the landscape as humans and Kellerans worked together to rebuild what had been destroyed. In the distance, new ships were arriving, bringing more Marines and supplies from human space. The Vorthok had made a fatal mistake. They had attacked a world under human protection, and now they were going to learn what that really meant. The war for the galaxy had begun, and this time, the humans weren't fighting alone. Dr. Myra Thorne looked out at the busy reconstruction efforts and smiled. When all hope was gone, the humans had fallen from the sky. Now, together with their new allies, they were going to make sure that hope never died again. Asterisk.